So we, in the last session, and I would like to thank everyone and welcome you to this session we'll be having now. And okay, so this
Ready to go.
yeah, so I'll be right there.
I'm ready to start whenever.
Okay, yeah, so we have the first presentation, and we'd like to have the first presenter. Please, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Pamela Pierce, and I'm the Publishing and Data Services Manager at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland. And I'm going to be talking about how we use our institutional repository to gain additional content and to get faculty to deposit, which has been a common theme running through a lot of these presentations. And I just wanted to acknowledge the work of my colleagues, Mary Jane White and Jesse Gorton. They are not presenting with me, but have definitely contributed at a variety of stages to what we do, and they are my constant partners. And my goals today are to just provide a few examples of digital collections that can increase faculty content and describe what we say when someone brings us something that is really outside of our scope, which can be a useful moment, I think, and create opportunities for us. And to give a little bit of context, Oregon Health and Science University has about 2,800 students. We have schools of medicine, dentistry. We have a public health school in partnership with Portland State University, and we also have a school of pharmacy that works with Oregon State University. And this is, I think, the fourth time I have presented at MIRL. And so just a recap of some of our previous presentations. We presented on doing a lot of work on evaluating potential platforms. We also made the spreadsheet that we use for that openly available in digital collections, which I think a lot of institutions have enjoyed seeing. And then in July of last year, we launched our instance of Tind, which was a nice balance between having a hosted digital collection platform and doing things ourselves. And then we worked and are still working on cleaning up things so that we can have nice collections. So you move in somewhere
and so we have Dave Klein and Rochelle DeVoe, who are all within their field.
Sorry, I just heard someone else talking about the experts within the field. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna just keep on.
That's great.
And the first thing I'll be talking about is a School of Dentistry anthology that we created, which this was something that the dean really wanted. And the dean of the School of Dentistry wanted this for years. And when the dean wants something, then you can get that buy-in, which is really important for any project. So this resulted in faculty depositing it. It resulted in having a team to work on it. And they found someone to do the layout how they wanted. And the dean even still attends our meetings sometimes for this, which just shows his investment in it. And part of the goal of this anthology is to support early career professionals and students, give them a little bit of publishing experience. One of the things that we try never to do is to accidentally call it a journal, because if calling it a journal makes it feel like a full publication, which then means sometimes that they can't publish their research somewhere else, and then that can create additional problems in the sharing of medical research. So we really try to refer to it as an anthology, and lay out clearly how they can check with the policies of a journal where they might want to share their work later. And so that's also those kind of decisions and thinking through that is also how we provide publishing support to students. So the anthology operates as a gateway for those kinds of questions and helping people navigate that. And then here's what the anthology looks like. And it shows, and this is just the masthead for it, and this can easily be downloaded through digital collections. And then we also have all the nice metrics that the school wants so that they can show the impact of it. One of the other collections that we have is the Symposium on Educational Excellence, which takes place every year. And faculty want to share their work in this, and they also want to share things like posters and abstracts because it's important, especially for like members of the Teaching and Learning Center and for librarians as well, who maybe don't have as many full publications, to still be able to share the work that they're doing because they also have a promotion process. And we've started including all abstracts as a default. So we're creating detailed records of this event and getting faculty into the habit of sharing their work just by sharing the abstracts. And then these are some of the other events we have. We've also done a lot of work in getting Research Week abstracts. You can see that's actually one of our biggest collections, and we started doing those, I think, in 2020. And so we continue to get new events as well. And as budget cuts become more of a reality, places may be pivoting away from physical poster sessions again, just like they did in the pandemic, which can also result in us getting more content into digital collections. One of the things that we don't do is that we don't share data in the institutional repository, in ours at least. We feel that there are homes, generalist repositories, an entire ecosystem of things that are better equipped to share data than us. So that is outside of our scope currently. And we talk about those generalist repositories. We talk about discipline-specific ones. And then we also see if they need help with data management and sharing plans. So similar to the School of Dentistry anthology, sometimes the things that you're helping people, you're providing that service and helping people navigate these issues. So we always say no, but we can still help is, I think, one of the best answers. And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation, Pam. And without much ado, we go to the next presentation by Tess, focusing on using Python to meet DOIs on demand for DSpace repository.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lisa Palmer. I'm the Institutional Repository Librarian at the Lamar Suter Library at UMass Chan Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. And joining me is Tess Grynoch, one of our research data and scholarly communications librarians. And this presentation will describe our project to develop a Python script for minting DOIs for our institutional repository. Since fall 2022, our repository, eScholarship at UMass Chan, has utilized Open Repository version 5.7, which is a hosted software platform from MIRL, and it's built on DSpace. Our repository contains the full text of previously published items, such as journal articles, along with original materials first published in eScholarship, including theses, dissertations, posters, reports, and data sets. For all original materials submitted, we create a digital object identifier, a DOI, via DataCite, a DOI minting organization. And this is crucial as DOIs, as alluded to earlier, they're a key persistent identifier to ensure discoverability and citation of research products. DSpace repositories currently have the ability to mint DOIs automatically for all items, but this feature isn't suitable for a repository like ours that includes published materials which already have DOIs. So our process was to mint DOIs by entering metadata for each original resource into an online form in Fabrica, DataCite's web interface for creating, editing, and tracking your DOIs. The Fabrica form is easy to use, but copying or entering metadata is a time-consuming task open to error.
Knowing the process could be automated, we embarked on a paired programming project to create a Python script to mint DOIs on demand in DataCite for individual items of eScholarship at UMass Chan. Paired programming is an approach where two programmers sit together to develop the same code at the same time, traditionally on the same computer as well. Typically, one person will be typing the code and the other will be navigating and reviewing the code and making suggestions. Lisa and I met about 1 hour per week to work on the code with some individual work outside of meetings. Through this approach, we were able to combine our relevant skills. Lisa brought her deep knowledge of the institutional repository and metadata, knowledge of the DOI minting process for DataCite, and the metadata needed, as well as experience writing Python code. I brought my own experience creating Python scripts to automate library processes, experience manipulating and cleaning textual data, and I also have a basic understanding of our institutional repository and the DOI minting process in DataCite. We started this project in July 2023 and had a successful script developed for the test server on November 14th, 2023. It wasn't long after that we had a production version of the script completed and tested. The result of our work was de-identified, and we shared the code on GitHub for others to use. Currently, we are in the midst of upgrading our IR to the DSpace 7 version of Open Repository, and we'll need to update the Python script. Along the way, we needed to make several decisions. On the technical side, using the DSpace API to update records was more difficult than using it to download repository metadata. So we decided to stop script development once the DOI was minted because we knew we were updating and upgrading the repository platform soon and wanted to wait until after the upgrade to put the effort of writing the script to update the repository record. We also ran into a conundrum of how to match authors with their ORCID ID when there are multiple authors in a record. Authors are not linked to their ORCID ID in our DSpace metadata, or just DSpace metadata in general, but they are linked in the DataCite metadata. Our solution was to only provide ORCID IDs in the automatic DataCite upload when there's only one author, and provide the list of ORCID IDs to manually add the DataCite metadata when there are multiple authors.
Another important step was to create a crosswalk to map the metadata values from DSpace to DataCite. This was necessary since the document types used in the repository are not an exact match for those used in DataCite. Another question was whether the script should mint findable permanent DOIs or draft DOIs that can be deleted if a mistake is made. We chose draft DOIs out of an abundance of caution, but this requires an additional step in the minting process, which is going back into Fabrica to update the DOI status. But after using the script for almost a year, I'm ready to update it to mint findable DOIs. There haven't been any mistakes that couldn't be fixed. The main reason I've needed to edit DOI metadata is to change the affiliation for some of the authors from UMass Chan, which is the default in the script, to another institution. And that change can be made whether the DOI is draft or permanent. We've been using the production version of the script since December 2023, and the overall impact has been positive. One benefit is that automating the process has reduced the chance of copy and paste errors that happened occasionally using the online form. We've also been able to improve the metadata that we provide to DataCite. Each record now includes the institution affiliation for our authors and the language of the resource. In the resource type field, the data entered is now more consistent, no human errors, and more descriptive. For example, items that were previously identified as a dissertation now also have a more specific resource type, doctoral dissertation or master's thesis. Another positive impact was in skills development. Tess and I both improved our Python skills. I can identify errors and troubleshoot the script more easily than would have been possible for me before. The new script allows us to mint DOIs more efficiently. We're saving 3 to 13 minutes per item. So I have more time to enhance and add content to the repository, and any future projects that involve DOI minting will be, much easier to consider with our new script. And Tess and I also gain new skills that can be applied to future opportunities to improve processes in the library.
Yes, many new skills learned. And we, over the many hours that we invested in the project. And one of the ways that you can assess the return on investment of an automation project is the amount of time spent versus the amount of time saved. For this project, we spent a total of 35 hours creating and testing the script and estimate that it'll save us about 6 to 27 hours per year. So we'll break even on time in 2 years. Overall, this was a successful paired programming project. We think this works well for 2 motivated people, but may not scale for a larger group. We also found that it's easier to work with APIs that are well documented. But between the 2 APIs, DataCite was better documented and easier to work with. When writing any type of script, it's important to be flexible. You may not be able to achieve everything you want right away, and your approach may change. For example, originally we thought we would need to edit XML, and I did a lot of research into that. But then we had to change our thinking when the output of the DSpace API was JSON, which is a more typical API output.
This project also highlighted the benefits of collaboration and teamwork. As a solo institutional repository librarian, it was great to work on a project with the support of another colleague in my department.
So as I mentioned earlier, our code is posted on GitHub and linked on this slide, and I'll drop that link in the chat in a minute here.
Okay.
I also mentioned that we are in the process of a planned upgrade to Open Repository 7, so we will need to make some changes to the Python script. Based on viewing the API pull from the @MIRL test server, the item ID is no longer is longer and has dashes, which may complicate the script, although our initial testing is that hopefully it won't. The data cleaning at the beginning of the script will also be longer because metadata is no longer a linked entity. So we'll have to remove some extra information, as well as removing extra information that is in the new subfields for the value of authority, confidence, and place, as well as the possibility that the DOI will be added to the new linked identifiers entity as well. And once the repository is upgraded, we will attempt to complete the DOI minting process by writing a step into our script to add that DOI to the Open Repository record. And in the future, we'd like to add more metadata to DataCite. And we've heard that minting DOIs on a collection basis may be available soon in DSpace, which will also resolve the need for minting individual DOIs for some of our collection. Another project that will affect the script is the ORCID DSpace integration being led by Lyrasis. Although I just attended their call recently, and they haven't solved the problem yet of the DSpace metadata of the author being linked to their ORCID ID yet, so that is still to come. And with that, we're happy to take questions at the end of the session, or put them in the chat, or you can reach out to us later. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you, Tess and Lisa. We would like to move to the next. That was a impressive time management skills. We move to the next presenter, and that is Anna Rachel Julia on using searchRxiv for depositing evidence synthesis searches. You have the floor. Go ahead, please.
And you can see my slides and hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks. So thank you for listening to our presentation using searchRxiv for depositing evidence synthesis searches. My name's Hannah Craven, and my co-authors are Rachel Hinrichs and Julia Stumpff, who I'm presenting on their behalf today. And this presentation is a little different from our perspective. Usually at this conference, we are all administrators, but I'm going to be talking as a user of searchRxiv, specifically a submitter to the repository. And just to clarify, when we say evidence synthesis searches, we are talking about expert searches created by librarians or anyone for projects like scoping reviews or systematic reviews or meta-analyses. So here's our agenda today. We'll cover what is searchRxiv and how it works, advantages and challenges, and our workarounds for those. And then we'll briefly cover using searchRxiv versus an institutional repository for preserving our searches. So searchRxiv is at searcharxiv.org, and it is an open access repository for search strategies developed by CABI, which has also developed the database Global Health, if you're familiar. The repository enables searches to be shared freely and openly, and reused by others and preserved for the long term. Ideally, this is getting us closer to our expert searches and our systematic review projects for being following the FAIR principles, which again stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So here's how it works. Each separate database is searched in one, or each separate database search is one record and has its own DOI. So if I searched 3 databases for one evidence synthesis paper, there would be 3 searchRxiv records. And as this video shows, you click to submit a search, and then at from the homepage, and you fill out a very long form. And not every field is required, but there are a lot of options. You fill out the form for each database you searched for the same project. And after much trial and error, we found that it's really useful to use the same title with the name of the database in different brackets or parentheses for each submission. Your search will be discoverable via searchRxiv and also on your ORCID profile after Crossref has harvested it. And each search strategy can be licensed Creative Commons attribution or public domain CC0 if you decided for that, which further enables reuse. So why we got involved, or how we got involved, was one of the reasons I was trying to find a search in an appendix of an older article, and I really wanted to see what they had done, and I couldn't find it. It was no longer there. And we wanted better options to preserve our searches besides depending on publisher appendices, which are not maintained in perpetuity, whatever. We also saw Melissa Reflison's presentation on developing searchRxiv at the Medical Library Association 2020 meeting. And then we decided later that year that we wanted to pursue working or uploading things there. So we have regular scheduled upload meetings to do this together. And after nearly 2 years of doing this, the 3 of us have, as of this summer, uploaded 65 individual searches from 15 different evidence synthesis projects. And I believe we are likely some of the heaviest users of the repository. So let's cover some advantages of using searchRxiv. An advantage is that you can contribute to the infrastructure that's helping improve the reproducibility of the searches. So all the fields in the form follow the Prisma S or Prisma search criteria. And Prisma is a guideline checklist for reporting items in your systematic review project. So Prisma stands for Preferred Reporting Items of Systematic Reviews or Meta-analyses. And then this is the search extension that we're using. So all of the essential information that you need to reproduce a search should be in the record. The search strategies are preserved long-term, even if the reviews appendices disappear, and it gives you a DOI. So if your searches, you can put those DOIs in your review manuscript, so whoever's reading the article can quickly access those searches. Another big advantage that we like is you can get credit for your work separate from the review that you contributed to. So your searches are their own separate research outputs. And because you get a DOI for them, you can add those citations of the searches to your CV and your online profiles. And also searchRxiv accumulates metrics. So you can see here in this screenshot, Rachel's got 65 views and already 2 citations for this search. So someone has reused it. This is really nice if you have ever been on a project that you did all of the work up front on the search and then they never ended up publishing that. We call them zombie reviews. It's really disheartening, but at least this way you can get your hard work out there for others to try and use. So some challenges. Nothing's without challenges. We found that there's a lack of documentation and help files in searchRxiv. So while there is a submission guidelines section, it's not very thorough and does not address the many questions we had while we were entering information in our submission form. And we didn't have any guidance on how to name our searches, which we realized we had to really think about once it showed up in our scholarly profiles. So once we started using searchRxiv, some fields also changed without explanation. So we had to contact them about that. And then lastly, we found some fields in the submission form to be unclear. So you can see in this example here, the fields related to the database search, we were unclear, like what's the difference between year from year two versus time span. So the solution to these issues has been a lot of correspondence via email to the searchRxiv staff to request clarification, and they have been very responsive and very helpful. And then we internally discuss and formalize what we put into each field, and we document our decisions on templates and local help files. Another issue could be unblinding peer review. So if you link the DOI of your searches into the manuscript, if a peer reviewer clicks on that, it could unblind your work by showing the author of the search and the institution. So our workaround for now is to, because we cannot embargo these or anything, so our workaround for now is to only put links to the searches after peer review when it's been accepted for publication, and just putting a placeholder in the meantime. Another challenge is finding time to upload our searches. So you saw with that video, there are a lot of fields. There's 40 fields on the submission form. And to address this, we just have protected time scheduled meetings where we co-work on uploading our own searches, and this has been pretty helpful. On the online form, there's an option to attach your related searches for your submission. And I love to work smarter, not harder, so I was trying to do that. And I found myself adding all the metadata to the form, from the form to the additional documents over and over again. And I wanted to streamline the process. And through the open communication with the searchRxiv team, they shared that the output of the online form is a spreadsheet. So I asked if I could see that output and if it could be easier for me to send my searches in a spreadsheet. And as you can see, they let me do that. And each row is a different submission for a different database search, but for the same project. So I'm able to copy paste. I would not recommend this if it's your first upload, but if you plan on being a searchRxiv super user like we are, it's very slick. Another challenge is that these searches are not typical research products, and it requires some curation to make them understandable in your ORCID profile or other sites. So let's talk about the difference or the pros and cons of using an institutional repository versus searchRxiv. We've gone back and forth on if we also want to add them to our institutional repository. And unless you have admin rights to your institutional repository, which a lot of us in this conference do, but otherwise the level of control you have over your records would be the same. So anytime I make an error or need to change something, I just email them and they do it for me. So the pros of the institutional repository for this, for archiving our searches, could be that I could have all my searches appear in one record with one permanent link, which does make more sense to me. And our institutional repository is picked up by Google Scholar, and this would appear nicely on our profiles if they were all in one record. A pro of searchRxiv is that it is created specifically for this purpose, and because of that, it has those extensive metadata fields. So a con of the IR, it's multi-purpose, of course, and if I was to upload my searches there, I would still find myself looking and referring to the searchRxiv submission form to make sure I had all the reproducible metadata support. And then a con of searchRxiv, I guess this is more my opinion, but the related searches are all individual records, which I think is unnecessary. And right now it is not picked up by Google Scholar, and I've been in communication with the team about that. So in conclusion, we think that searchRxiv is a scalable way to get credit for our searches and to enable reuse and replicability of our evidence synthesis projects. It's not perfect, but we found the staff to be super helpful and responsive and very open to feedback. And for now, we will continue using it to archive our searches and encourage you to as well. So thank you for listening. And our slides are available here.
Awesome. Thank you for that presentation. And And thank you, Hannah. So we'd like to move to the next presenter and on developing and institutional repository Venn diagram. Please, Ramune.
Not seeing, sorry, having a little delay with my screen here. I practiced, but is it showing? Not yet.
No, we see your desktop.
Oh dear. I knew this might happen. And I'm the last one of the day. How about now? No.
Yeah.
We see it in presenter mode at like half
Okay.
the screen.
How about now?
Good.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you everyone for sticking around to the end. I'm Ramune Kubilius. I happen to be on the planning committee, but this describes a little project that a few of us did for about a half year at the beginning of 2024. And I acknowledge the team that was involved. This was a presentation derived in part from a poster we did at SLA at University of Rhode Island in July, and an article that came out in just last week in Information Outlook. And the collaborators, my collaborators were Michael Burke from Berklee College of Music, Aaron Jerome of University of Massachusetts Amherst, Julia Lovett, University of Rhode Island, Emily Ping O'Brien from Worcester Polytechnic, and Lisa Palmer from UMass Chan, who brought us all together. And we acknowledge our colleagues who helped support us in this endeavor. I might have been the outlier. I'm not an IR manager, but I participated in the project. So it started in January when I exchanged emails with Lisa Palmer saying, hey, look, SLA's coming to the East Coast in July. Maybe we want to put together a proposal. She was the one who was able to bring together some folks who have interest in the specialized academic library IR community. And we started meeting up, 7 of us, and then 6 committed to putting forward a proposal. And we started meeting regularly to figure out what that proposal would look like. It would have been nice to do a roundtable discussion, but it wasn't practical to get 6 people to University of Rhode Island. 2 of us were committed to going. So we decided to do a poster instead. Instead of embarking on a big IR formal survey or some other kind of project, due to the time limitations, we decided to submit a proposal for a poster. And as it was accepted, we just decided to survey ourselves, analyze the questions, visualize the more interesting findings in a poster format, and present them at SLA. And the questions we asked ourselves, deposited in my library's IR, if you would like to look, were very basic questions on the launch year and what platform and the number of deposits and DOI minting, things we've heard today. The Venn diagram is very pretty and very useful, and we were able to use it to visualize our findings, especially when it came to contents. It made for a pretty flower. The center white gray area has a lot of formats that were present in all of our repositories. Of course, Berklee, being a music school, had musical scores. That was a unique thing in their pedal, if you will. But when you look at the 2 medical libraries, UMass Chan and Feinberg, we didn't even have everything even in common among the 2 medical IRs, let alone what some of the other IRs had decided to put in their repository, student newspapers, yearbooks, and other things, browsable databases. The other Venn diagrams that worked for our questions were the one about what analytical tools, but only the common area was Google Analytics. Otherwise, it kind of split between those of us on open source IRs and proprietary IRs. And as was mentioned today by several speakers, Digital Commons is a common platform. In our group, all but my library started in it, but 2 remain. 3 have moved and already are upgrading the versions of the platforms that they moved to. And we migrated to a different open source platform, but we're never in digital commons. So that was in our conversations over the months, that's where I got the phrase, we outgrew the platform. So sometimes you start in one and move to another. Some of the other questions we asked ourselves just were not amenable to Venn diagram display. And those we decided to put the demographic information into little boxes. And we kind of divided up whether the institution was private or public. When did it launch its first IR? And that ranged from the early adopters, 2006, all the way to the latest one, 2019. And the number of deposits also ranged quite a bit from just under 4,000 to moving towards 50, upwards of 57,000. So quite a range among our little group of 6. The other thing we decided wasn't amenable to a Venn diagram was our policies and practices. Those were, many of them were yes and no, although behind the scenes as we were filling out the questionnaires, we had to kind of define what does it exactly mean. Since I'm not an IR manager, I had to check with some other folks at my library. Are we doing this or that? But if you look at across the line, you'll see that there isn't consistency. Each repository has its own policies and practices when it comes to either its institutional open access policy or mandate, all the way through to whether or not they require theses to be submitted. And in between, all the things about embargoes and DOI minting and name changes and so many other things. And I will say that some of the questions we asked ourselves were never really addressed in our poster. Things about the future plans of our IRs that made for good conversation over those almost 6 months. But we decided just didn't have the space or the way to be visualized in poster format. So we presented at SLA, had some good conversations with folks who would probably be considered UL's counterparts, the research labs and other types of libraries that serve communities that do have outward-facing content and were interested in the repository environment. And then there were the corporate sector SLA members who have other digital asset management systems and don't have content that they want to share. But we had some good conversations. Some science librarians looked very carefully at what version of what platform someone has and said, oh, they don't have the latest one. So some of our poster visitors were very observant. So that's the full poster. It is deposited in our repository at Northwestern. My colleague, co-author Julia Lovett is depicted in the photo there. So I think the 6-month journey was very fruitful for us. It started with a little idea that we wanted to present at a conference on specialized IRs in the academic sector. We had to formulate the idea and we presented and shared, but first we had to share among ourselves. But admittedly, it's a snapshot in time, a very small sampling of what's special in academic, but the benefits were the conversations, the networking, the scholarly output, ideas for, and provide ideas for future collaborations. This is my summary slide, has the QRs for the deposits of both the questions and the poster. On the left are the networks, some of which were mentioned today in our session. On the right are some of the conferences that one of the presenters said, where else are our peeps? There are many opportunities for us to share our use cases or our partnerships, pilots, grant projects. And in the middle are a few projects that a few of us have been involved in. And if you note the dates, you'll see that definitely they warrant being updated. So this is sort of a call, as I've done before, to keep talking over coffee and virtually, presenting some of what you found so that we don't operate just in our silos or in our subject area landscapes, that we can learn from each other. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, very good, Ramune. Thanks for that presentation, quite insightful, and wrapping up all the presentations. And we would like to move to the question and answer session. There have been questions and they've been posted. So one of them is the most recent ones to Ramune. If you could access it, asking if you've got any unique features or content in the IRs who were part of the collaboration influence and other IRs to pursue those features or adding different content.
Well, I'm hoping that our conversation raised, oh, you're depositing that, or oh, you're doing that. Some of the folks in our group of 6 are much more experienced. And I wish one of the newer repository managers were here to say whether hearing some of these experienced folks brought some new ideas to mind. But certainly hearing about musical scores, and in the case of medical humanities research, I think, and anytime we hear some new good ideas, it's something to bring back to the shop and say, hey, this other institution's doing this, let's maybe consider doing it as well. But some repositories you can't just program yourself, and others have to go through committee. So some great ideas do take a while to go through the pipeline.
Yeah, thank you, Ramune. Anna, it seems you've got a question also. Is Hannah still there?
Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, I was curious, Travis, if you could put a link to an example of your systematic searches in your repository, I would love to see that. But yeah, my mentor for scholarly communications, and who does a lot with digital commons at our university library, says the more places you put things, the more eyes they will get. So it seems duplicative to put things in 2 places, but we still might put things in our institutional repository. But like you said, it takes time. So to be determined.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I had posted a question for Pam about
That's right.
her plans beyond dentistry.
I'm still here. I think that the plans beyond dentistry are that we are maybe thinking just more broadly about making our collections more findable. And I think that we are still developing the plans because this is part of a new unit within the library, a publishing and data services unit. So I'm often asked what my plans are, and I'm actively in the process of making them, and that will be next year's presentation. So to be answered a year from now.
Okay. Very good. Are there any question that's yet to be answered?
Yeah, I didn't answer the question yet in the chat about if this our code will work for Crossref.
Crossref.
And in answer to that, I believe that the similar process would work because Crossref does have a similar post API. The only something you would need to change is that the upload for the Crossref API is XML, so you would need to convert the JSON to an XML document as an output from your script, as opposed to with DataCite where it's a JSON. You can do a JSON upload. So that's something that we need to change, but you could approach it with a similar process of doing a paired programming approach. You could probably even use the start of the script that we wrote for the data cleaning and the accessing pulling the metadata from the repository but then would have to revise it to convert to an XML and upload to Crossref.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Tess. It seems all questions have been answered. I think
I can ask you a quick question. What's the reception of the searches being held in the repository? Like, are people viewing them, or is it largely for like librarians' benefit? Does it enable people to like recreate it and run a search themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's still getting known, so it's pretty new. I've thought about like, will researchers be nervous that like they'll get scooped if we put it up before the publication? But I've been to webinars about searchRxiv, and like that just simply doesn't happen. But yeah, you can see the view data on each individual record. So yeah, the ones I've uploaded a while ago now have quite a few views. I know personally, when I am starting a new project, I go and see if someone has written on at least one of the concepts I'm going to be searching, and see what I can borrow from it. So yeah, did you have any other, did I hit everything?
Yes, yeah, thank you. We're kind of considering something like that here with the systematic review searching that we do.
Yeah.
But you raise a good point that there's really no reason to be concerned about someone scooping, because the publication, I mean, unless they're gonna find a journal that'll publish it that day, like the process is just so long that it's hard to leapfrog anyone, you know?
Exactly. It is very arduous.
Okay. More questions? If with no questions, thank you for your presentations. For this for the presenters for this session on technical tools and creative initiatives, and I hand over to Steve.
Thank you, Buddy. That is all of our presentations today. Thank you everyone for attending. I always love seeing the mix of like practical advice, technical expertise that I'm gonna have to probably watch again to really wrap my head around. We had a lot of good social advice, ways to connect with our, our constituents and other people doing what we're working on. It's very exciting and rewarding. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I just want to mention our planning group one last time. Give a big thank you to Lisa Buda, Jennifer Deal, Anthony Della Friccio, Sarah Hoover, Ramune Kubilius, Gabadeo Audolaro, and Lisa Palmer. Gabadeo and Jennifer are joining us for the first time this year, and they were a big help. Jennifer helped with programming, and Gabadeo was our moderator for the third session. And we would like to share some bittersweet news that Lisa Palmer is retiring and will step off of the MIRL Planning Committee. So big thank you to Lisa for all of her work and for her presentation today. Thank you for Ramune for her presentation as well, along with everyone else for answering the questions and sharing all of your expertise. We will be putting the slides and the recordings on the MIRL website as soon as they are available, and we'll send an email to everyone who registered. We'll post to the Google group. If you're interested in keeping up with the conversation, please join our Google group. I saw we've had a good rush of people join, so that's exciting. I believe that is it. So thank you again, and we will see you all this time next year.